So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's really my privilege and honor to introduce to you Dr. Hannes Schmid. Please.
Well, Robin, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you that you gave me the opportunity to be here today and tell a little bit of my story. Well, if I really tell everything, then you have to stay here for another week because that takes so long. But I prepared a little short video. It's like really powerful and gives you a little bit an intro of who I am.
Each photo tells a unique story. And each story becomes a stunning photo.
Eine Geschichte zu erleben war mir nicht gut genug. Ich musste sie leben. Realität zu inszenieren, das war mein Ziel.
Hannes Schmid takes us to the most exciting locations in the world. Where other photographers reach their limits, he goes a step further to create images that have left their mark on the memory of entire generations. Treat your eyes to an amazing journey.
Well, where did it all start? 1946, little Hansli was born in Switzerland, in the mountain. But that was just post-Second World War, so we were a very, very poor family. We were 4 kids. And school, well, when I didn't have to work, I was allowed to go to school, but mainly I was not at school. I had one pair of shoes, and they were actually used for the winter, and it was already a big kind of a business that I every winter got a new pair of shoes because my feet were growing. So growing up there gave me the roots. I was goat Peter, I herded sheep and goats, and my family got in return cheese, butter, and milk. But then I had a chance, after I finished 6 years of primary school and 2 years of secondary school, to take an apprenticeship as an electrician. And when I finished my job, I thought Switzerland became a little bit small to me. And I immigrated to South Africa. And in South Africa, I discovered my love for photography. I studied shortly at the University of Cape Town, but then I realized that actually I cannot learn much at the university because this professor, they only talk about photography, and by themselves they didn't take picture. So it was for me a bit alien what I do there. So I started traveling Africa. 4 years I traveled to Africa. But that time there was hardly any photo laboratories around, so I had to send my pictures home, my film home to my sister. And my sister, she would send it to Kodak. And then but she would never send me my pictures back to me because I was on the go. But she had letters, airmail, posta restante, and in the letter says, "Oh, Hannes, well, there were a lot of dark ones and a lot of bright ones, and I think that was a good one." So actually 4 years, I have not seen one single picture I've taken. After 4 years, I arrived at home, and I was disappointed because I thought I have my big, big pictures. But yeah, she was right. A lot were dark, a lot were like too overexposed. And then I got another job offer to go to Singapore for a Swiss company. So I came here in 1972, and Singapore was totally different at that time. It was the start of everything here. And I had a job as an electrician, but I thought, no, it's not my life. So I moved to Bandar Aceh in an orangutan rehabilitation station. And that was very, very special for me because I'm not a scientist, that I was like helping, to bring babies, orangutan babies back into the wild. And that was really an amazing time for me. So I spent nearly 1 year taking care about orangutans, taking picture, be very close to them, and learn a lot about a different life. Well, at the end, I didn't know who learned more from whom, if I learned more from them or they learned from me. But when I came back, I was at the Raffles Hotel outside on the terrace, and you would not believe, in 72, you could see the ocean from there, because they just started to build Shenton Way, landfill, right? And I picked up the Singapore Straits, and in the Singapore Straits, there was a story about Michael Rockefeller. One of the Rockefeller sons, he was an anthropologist. 1961, he moved to Irian Jaya and started to look for learning more about the Danis and Lanis. These are Stone Age people and cannibals. But he disappeared in 64. So the Rockefeller family was sending one expedition after the expedition. They could not find anything. And I said, if they haven't found him, why don't I go look for him? Maybe I can find him. Because, I have a lot of experience living in the jungle because I learned it from the orangutans. So I went to Jakarta. I filed for a permit, but they denied my permit. So I took a job on a boat, on a Chinese boat as a chef. And so I traveled to Ambon, Sorong, Biak, Jayapura, went off and packed my backpack and started hiking. Well, it was a long hike. First of all, there was no road, there was no path, there was no nothing. And it took me nearly 3.5 months till I made it into Vamina, into the mountains where the Danis live. It was a very rainy day. And, I knew how to do my bed in the jungle. And suddenly they appeared very quietly. And then the arrows were flowing, so they were shooting at me. I had arrows sticking my chest, in my leg. They started beating me up. They catch me on my feet, and they were slapping me over rocks and stones and threw me into the pig stall. And from then on, I had to share my life with the pigs. So every second, third day, they took me out again, start beating me up. And then I was crawling in the mud. I was begging for my life. I was crying. And then they stopped back into the pig stall. And I had no idea what's going on. I just thought, I'm not going to live long up there because it was very terrible. So after 1 month, with this kind of in and out, I was moved to the women house. So I had to live with the women. And you see, the kind of level is warrior, men, boys, pigs, women, and then it was me on the very bottom. Because, the women they have to breastfeed the young baby pigs if the mother sow doesn't have enough milk. And they chop all the fingers off of the women because they have, when somebody died, they have to take this as a kind of a tribute to the person who died. So slowly I became a member of this tribe. I learned the language. So it's very simple, the language, but I became a part of it. So if you look at these pictures, these two guys, the one on the right is maybe 28 years, and the one on the left is, if you are lucky, 25 years. So they only have a life expectation of 30 years. And they're very tribal. And after nearly 8 months living with them, I had a chance one morning and I could run off. So I left Wamena up there. I only had a little pack with me. I had nothing left. So I had a long way. It was nearly 1,000 kilometers till I made it to the coast. And on the coast, I was very, very ill. I got picked up by the Kuruwais. This is another tribe. They have another type of cannibalism. And then they schlepped me up to a tree. So I was living up there halfway dead in a tree house till missionaries found out that there is a white guy living up there. So they came, they risked me, they brought me back to Australia and then back to Switzerland, where I had to spend 1 year in the hospital because I was not even able to stand. I had no muscles anymore. I was very sick. I had malaria, I had dengue, I had encephalitis, I had typhoid. And it was really not a very little chance that I survived. But because I was away already nearly 10 years, one of my friends, he was A&R, artist and record of phonogram, record company. He always came and visit me in the hospital. So there was that one day he came and said, Hannes, there's a great concert, a rock concert on the big stadium in Zurich. Do you want to come? I said, oh, I've never been on a rock concert. I said, you have to see this. This is really wild. So we went to this rock concert, and the band was called Status Quo, rocking all over the world, like really rock and roll. So, well, when I went there, I was fascinated because actually the people, they were like my tribes, they were all shaking their fists, and the band was like shaking their heads like crazy. I was like, what's going on here? The music was awful. You know, it was loud, it was wrong, but nobody cared about it. You know, everybody had just this crazy time. And then after the concert, he took me to the dinner with the band. And, well, the band came in, we were a bit early. And then, you know, Rick Parfit with the long hair, he came in and said, "Who's this guy?" And then my friend said, "There's a photographer." He said, "Get out of here. We don't have dinner with photographers." That time, rock bands didn't want to see journalists or photographers, right? So he said, no, he's a crazy guy. He used to eat rats, mouses, and he used to live with cannibals. So I had to talk about story. I want to hear my story. So after the dinner, the manager came and said, "Did you really take picture of cannibals?" I said, "Yeah, kind of, yeah." He said, "Then you have to shoot my band." So the next day I had a photo session with the band. And for them, I was not a photographer. I was a crazy guy. So they were halfway naked in the hotel room. They poured champagne over their head. They took the curtains down, and I just was clicking away. So 2 days later, I showed this to the manager. He said, "My God, what have you done with these guys? They hate photographers. Do you want a job? I could use you." I said, "Well, yeah, actually, I have nothing to do, so why not?" So a day later, I packed my little backpack and I joined them on tour. And this is 8 years, 257 rock bands, from AA, ABBA to Zed Zappa, so AC/DC, Rolling Stones, and then also Nina Hagen. And Nina Hagen changed again my life. She was this young punk rocker from the German Democrat, from the DDR, you know, and so I became her photographer. And then there was a German magazine, German Vogue, so they wanted to have her on the cover. They were sending her with a photographer to London, but then the photographer treated her as a model, and she said, "I'm not a model, I'm a rock star." And she walked off. She said, "I want my photographer." They said, "Yeah, who is your photographer?" Hannes. But Hannes, can he do fashion pictures? She said, "No, he doesn't need to do fashion picture because I want to do different pictures." So what we did in London was so outrageous different that then German Vogue came to me and said, "Hey, would you do a winter fashion for us?" I said, "Winter? I'm sorry, I never did fashion photography." "Yeah, can you do something special?" And that was also a time I started rock climbing a lot. So I called my friend in Interlaken and said, "Hey, can we climb the Eiger Section?" He said, "Are you crazy with models?" "Yeah, you know, we schlep them up, we put ropes in the wall, and then we pull them up, and then we hang in the wall, and then we do these pictures." And then we went to the train company, Jungfrauenbahnen, because there were 3 big windows in the middle of the wall. So I asked them if they can open the window, because we cannot make it from the bottom, but from there, actually, we can make it to the top. So we were hanging fixed rope into this sheer wall, and then we hooked the models in and we pulled them up, right? And then this was my fashion picture. I did never seen before in fashion, you know. A model tried to climb a sheer wall, snowed in, you know, and so that was the opening. From then on, a French Vogue called me, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Marie Claire, Kenzo. I did the first fashion spread for Kenzo. And then I went on and on and on and on. And one of my big fashion story was that I tried to climb Everest with my fashion team. So we went to Lukla. From Lukla, we took an expedition part. We went to Camp 1. And then from Camp 1, we climbed, base camp, Camp 1, we climbed up to Camp 3. But then one of the models, she made a hematome. So, of course, there comes the point where it's not funny anymore. So we had to return. And this picture is made on Kalapatar. This is just opposite. It's 6,500 meters. In the back, you see Nuptse, Lhotse, Shar, a very amazing place. So I was more and more known in the fashion industry to not making fashion pictures, but telling stories. That's what I did, right? My spreads was always 30 pages, 40 pages in this fashion magazine. It was crazy. And of course, the whole world was my studio. So this is one of the very famous pictures. Is awarded by Time Life magazine of one of the best fashion picture ever. But the reality is that these models are really running for their lives, you know. This is the Masai Mara, and I wanted to recreate from Hemingway, Snow on the Kilimanjaro, you know, carrying Blixen, because I always took these stories where I then wanted to implement in my fashion. And well, it was 2 weeks already we were shooting, and I still had this picture in my head that, you know, the troupe is like walking in their beautiful clothes, and then on the back you see elephants and giraffes and zebras, right? But the problem was on that last day where we had to shoot this, well, there was no giraffe, there was no nothing, there was not even the elephants. And then, you know, I was like, hey, we only have 1 day left. So there were elephants, but they were hiding in a forest. And then we tried to chase them out, with the rangers, but they wouldn't go out. But then I saw one elephant coming in the distance. So I placed my models in front. I was on the roof of a Land Rover, right? Safe, of course, up there. And so then I thought, you have to wait. The elephant is very slow. I need it bigger. I need it bigger. Wait. So in the last moment, I saw that she has a baby and she was attacking us. So she was like, and off it went. So they were ready for life. And the guys who were supposed to protect us, they threw the guns away and were running faster than anybody else, right? But then in the last moment, the elephant turned around and went into the forest. I start to realize, you see, it's a very gray sky. So there is a storm. So the the herd was faster. She with the baby was slower. So actually we blocked the way for her to go into the forest. And so I had like one story after this, because I was able to produce picture who looked real. My stories were real. Everybody believed that what they see is real. Suddenly, advertisements started to recognize me, and I was the guy who did Camel Trophy. I did all this big cigarette campaign because the cigarette people wanted to have reality on that picture. And that was the day where I got a call from Chicago, from Leo Burnett, since more than 30 years they do Marlboro. So they called me in and said, Mr. Schmid, will you be interested? Why do you come for a meeting? So I went there. So I went on that meeting and they said to me, we're looking for something real, something new, something masculine, but you cannot change anything. Because Marlboro is actually invented in 1954. I said, it's a bit difficult to do. So the cowboy is a cowboy. You want to do? He said, yeah, why don't you try? So I became a test shooter. And it was an accident, like so many things, but I discovered a totally new way of picture Marlboro. And this is in sunsets. It's quite complicated, but it was a problem that it was very early in the morning. And I have set up my scene, and then the sun came up, and there was a horse was supposed to be tearing themselves loose and run away, and then you have the sun. And then when I checked my film, it's an analog film, it came like this. So it was very special. It's a cutout and became very strong. It's very good on big billboards. And that's how I became one of their central shooter. For 10 years, actually, I was in charge for Marlboro. I know tobacco is not really the best you can stand for, but for me it was fascinating. As the guy who was herding sheep and goats, suddenly was in charge of one of the largest advertisement campaign, and I had everything I wanted. I had rain machines, I had helicopters, once I did a picture with over 600 horses, so this was 100 trailers. It was another 50 trailers of water, of hay, over 100 wranglers who had to clean the horses. And then, I was spending all that money, and there was that the herd is running, the sun comes up, everything was perfect. The herd had to run for 6 months before on a meadow, so that the guided lead of the horses was be able, so we could direct. And then the sun came up and everything was ready. The horse started to run, and then the cloud went in front of the sun. So that was about the $500,000 spending in one morning. So, but it was interesting for me. In 2021, I was invited at the Biennale in Venice. And everybody heard about this new American artist, Richard Prince. And I was never in art before, really. I was a photographer. I lived my own life. And, art is on this side. And, photographers are on this side. And then I was on the opening day, and we walked into a very big hall, the Sala Venezia. And I came in there were all my cowboy pictures on the wall. I couldn't believe. I nearly had a heart attack. What the hell what is going on? So I called my office and said, hey guys, I look a bit foolish. I'm here with the Museum of Modern Art, with the curator, with a whole group of people, and they talk about my photography. I didn't know. Do you know? Why are we here? And I said, you're not there, we know anything. Why don't you go and read? So there was a little kind of a sign beside the picture where it said photography by Richard Prince on Kodak Ektachrome. I said, I can't believe there's a guy stealing my work, right? And then they were talking about, this incredible masculinity, this depth of these pictures and this uniqueness. And I said, what is this guy talking about? So, but I didn't spoke up because I felt really very strange. So I checked it out. So Richard Prince is an appropriation artist. He's appropriation others artists' work and makes it to his work. And I said, hey, this is violating my copyright. So I took the lawyer, went to New York, he came back very small and said, he has over 200 cases. And at the end, he always wins because in America, there's a law, it's called fair use. So American artists can use the work of other artists, and as long as they create a new context. So his context was that through the tobacco legislation, America will lose one of their most important heroes, because when it's not on the billboard and not advertised anymore, everybody forgets about the cowboy because it doesn't exist anymore. So and then I was very pissed because, he sold my photographs that time for $500,000 to $700,000 a piece. I mean, they were auctioned on Christie's. And my wife, Singaporean artist, right? We sit at home in Switzerland, and I was so frustrated. She said, we are Chinese, she's Chinese, when something happened like this, we think about if there is not something good behind. I said, very typical Chinese, right? She said, yeah, just think about it. Photography is a reproduction art, right? Richard Prince only has a reproduction of your reproduction. Well, because I photographed it, it was printed on a magazine, and then he copied it. She said, if you could produce a unique piece of your appropriation yourself, you could maybe stand beside him. I said, what do you mean? She said, you have to paint it with oil on canvas in photorealism. I said, brilliant idea, but I can't paint. She said, we Chinese, if we don't know how to do things, we go in the cellar and we practice and we practice and we practice. And I said to her, do you think now I have to go in the cellar? She said, yeah, well, if you want to claim back your work, you have to go in the cellar. Well, as a husband, you follow the wife's direction. So I went in the cellar. By 2028, I had the first 6 pieces, and they looked very good. So with these pieces, I went to New York to Gagosian. This is the largest gallery in the world. They're representing Richard Prince. And then, of course, they said, it's very good work, but unfortunately, this is conflict of interest. They were sending me to another gallery. So the other galleries took my work, and in August 2028, there was an opening, and that changed my life. Overnight, in the Museum of Modern Art, I was handed from one museum to the other with my painting. So I became an artist. Very easy. You just have to paint, right? But it was very difficult for me because it's a very precise work, but it gave me totally new kind of perspectives. At the same time, British-American Tobacco Race came to me and said, look, we have a big problem. We're spending millions on the Formula One team, but because we have Honda engines, we never win. We're always the last and the second one. And in Formula One, you only see the guys who shake the champagne. The other one, they're not even on the TV anymore. can you do something? So I looked at it and I said, well, the Formula One car is an art object. So, but not when it's on the grade on the floor. So you have to sell it, you have to put it straight up. So that's what I did, right? And then I had the idea, because Pierre Cardin is a close friend of mine. So I said, why don't dump we a Formula One car into the swimming pool of Pierre Cardin? So that's what I did. This is Jacques Villeneuve who is laying there, right? It was supposed to be a show car. And it came at 2 o'clock from Monza in the morning, and then we put it on the crane, and then the guy who drives the crane said, it's a very heavy car. I said, look, I have no idea how heavy a show car is, just dump it in the pool, right? So we dumped it in the pool, and then after 5 minutes, there was these beautiful rainbow colors coming up. I said, shit, something is wrong here. So it was a real car, unfortunately, you know. So we dumped the real Formula One car into the swimming pool of Pierre Cardin. Well, then the next morning, the guys came, the mechanics came, and they said, are you crazy? You know how much this car costs? I said, look, I'm very sorry. So they called Jimmy Remijewski, the CEO of British American Tobacco, and he said, I don't know what your problem is. If I look at the bills I get from you, I pay every race a new car. So where's your problem? I always said, be careful with this guy. You have to put him in a cage. Otherwise, he goes pursuit. And then the problem was that I realized, I was a member of the team. And I thought, look, if you really want to have more PR, more returns, we have to do something special. He said, what do you have in mind? I said, look, why don't we try to establish a land speed record on the salt flats in Bonneville, right? And so this was a huge project. And, Jimmy said, oh, then we can write motorsport history. I said, yeah, it's the first car, never ever tried, right? So we put teams together. There's a movie about it. I did a cinema movie about this whole thing. It's called Bonneville, the Final Run, and that's how I brought a Formula One car in the salt flats. We spent millions and millions and millions. We burned 18 engines because a Formula One car is not made to go on high speed for a long time. They made to speed up, speed down, and go around the corner. But after 1.5, 2 seconds on 18,800 RMP, the engine blows up. So the team had to build new engine, they had to do things, and everything had to be in this perspectives of the FIA. So it had to be an official Formula One car. So then on the day we were supposed to do the night before it started to rain, right? And I said, well, I don't care, because I knew that this car is going to be, the salt water is very intensive there. So I had it run, and then when I had this picture, I went back to Jimmy and said, Jimmy, look, I'm sorry, I failed. We got rained out. And I said, this is probably the most expensive picture ever taken. So I put it on the table. And he said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, yeah, I understand if you're not going on, because, we blew over $35 million already for this kind of stunt. And then he said, Hannes, big company have big dreams, Sometimes it takes longer till a dream become true. I said, what do you mean? I said, get out of my office and keep on working. So at the final end, we achieved that whole thing. And so this is all my life I was in, I also in 2013, the advisory department of PricewaterhouseCoopers came to me because I had an exhibition in Switzerland. And they wanted to talk with me because they just had put the claim out, transformation, because transformation became very important. Because everything then, it was in transformation, the society, the nature, everything. We human, everything is about transformation. And so they started to take my life as an abstract form of transformation. So from then on, I was on all the economy forums, I was holding talks in Davos, internationally, from San Francisco to China, here Singapore. So I was actually living out of a suitcase, and I did nothing else than telling my story. And I also had a special art project. It's rooted in Singapore. It's a Wayang. Singaporean know there is this theaters, Phillip Street at the temple once or twice a year. They come there, they build up their red chairs. They are actors and they play. So in the chairs are reserved for gods, ghosts, and deities, and nobody has an entry to it. So I started to discover this in '98. And started to do a project. It's actually supported by UNESCO. It's a World Heritage project. I tried to Lee Boon-yang, that was the former minister here of culture, to actually do a bigger thing for Singapore. But it was very difficult because we had actually done a storyboard for a film. But then, Singapore is very commercial, and then we wanted to bring it as a theater all over the world. But then they had to build a Singapore food court with this and all this kind of thing. And I think this is culture. You cannot go there and eat. You have to come and watch and learn about culture. And through that, I was in Thailand. In Thailand, they have in Udon Thani, it's a small town, they have a very secluded Chinese group of people living there like for 300 years ago. And on the evening, I crossed the bridge, and there was a girl begging. She was covered with a piece of fabric. And I dropped her some butter into her rusty can, and then this fabric went away, and I was shocked. I didn't expect that to look in a face who had a white eye was burned, like the whole body was burned, and I couldn't say first anything. And then I wanted to talk to her, and then a Thai person came and said, "Oh, sorry, sir, don't speak English with her. She's Cambodian. You have to speak Khmer. And by the way, she's a begging doll." I said, "Sorry, what is she?" "She's a begging doll." "Yeah, they burned her purposely that she make more money." I couldn't believe what I saw. So the next morning, I found a person, they spoke Khmer, and that's where I found Wei. When I found her, she was 13 years old. Her story is, her father, rice farmer in Battambang, had a very bad harvest. He had to take money from the Vietnamese loan shark. He couldn't pay it back. So he tried to sell his daughter. Very common still today. But nobody wanted her. So he took a blowtorch, burned her face, burned her body, and like this he was able to selling her to an old woman. And the old woman sold her on in Thailand to a begging syndication. I paid $500 for her. I packed her in a car, covered her with a piece of blanket, and smuggled her across in Poi Phet from Thailand back to Cambodia and put her in an orphanage. She was in a very, very bad state. She couldn't eat anymore. Everything was sick. But, it's just terrible. And for me, it was just a moment in life where you even if you want or don't want, you can't react different and say, I have to do something. I felt that I have to do something. So Sherilyn Cox, the woman of the orphanage, told me, Hannes, we have 250 to 300 children, mainly girls. They splash in assets. They burn them. And they sell them into the begging syndication. I said, why don't we know this? Where are they? She said, well, if you want to know more, you have to go to the dump site outside of Phnom Penh, and you find worse. So the next day, I moved to the dump site, and I started living on the dump site. It's inhumane. It burns. Your eyes are burning. You can't breathe. It is terrible, absolute terrible. They have no money, so what do? We tear plastic bags who are already rotten for, or being in the sun for several days, and we try to find things we can eat. Rotten fish, rotten chicken, rotten vegetables. And that's how they live there. This is how the life looks like there. It's dirty, it's rats, it stinks. There is no clean water, so that I discovered how they live. Or here, when they try to find things they can sell, pet bottles, Coca-Cola cans, wires, whatever comes with the trucks out there. And if a family with 4 or 5 kids, mainly they have so many kids, if they work from early morning, sun goes up, the sun goes down, they maybe make $1 a day if they're lucky. But the kilo rice is 90 cents. So many, many days they have no money to buy rice, right? And then what do? Well, child prostitution is very big in Cambodia. We have about 5,000 to 6,000 girls in the age from 5 to 12 in the child prostitution. 25 cents is oral sex. 5-time oral sex one evening is a kilo rice. That's a fact. Well, COVID stopped this a little bit, but now it's starting off again because tourists coming in again. So I was so shocked when I learned all this. I wanted to help. So I started living on the dump site. I was buying rice. It was about 10 tons of rice where I was buying every 2 weeks. Then I saw that everybody is undernourished. They don't have enough food. So the women looked like, they are kind of good, like a little bit fat on the body, but they had no milk for their babies. So then they were cooking rice, what they had, or when they had, and then they used the rice water, add sugar, and that's how the children were living, on that sugar water. So I stopped buying milk powder, it was nearly 900 cans of milk powder, and then we now had water, so it was 7,000 liters of water. I mean, I had no idea. I'm an artist, I'm not a philanthropist or anything. But I had to learn the hard way, what it means to live there. And I always tried to find a little bit money because I was selling my art. All my money we had in Switzerland, my family asset, I brought everything to Cambodia to try to help. And then I realized after 10 months that I have not changed anything. They still live there. They have a little bit more rice now and a little bit milk powder, the milk for the children. But I haven't changed nothing. They have to live in the shit. We still have the child prostitution. Everybody was sick. Nobody had money for medication. And I thought I have to do something. So first, the children, I said they have to go to school because nobody went to school. So I took 280 children. That was my community, more or less, on that one dump site. Then I was buying tuk-tuks. Then I was buying school uniforms, shoes, and rucksacks, and pens, and paper. And then I drove them to the nearest school. But the teacher didn't took my children because we were stinking like a rubbish bag. The flies were flying with us. We were like dirty from the bottom to the top. The teacher said, no, you cannot enter the school like this. I said, oh, okay. So I started to build up a laundry on the dump site, and I bought a second pair of school uniforms so that they always had a clean one. And then they were taking my children, but I had to pay between 25 and 50 cents a day for every child. And then I started to discover after 7 months, was probably the most stupid things I did to support these children, because the teacher, they were hardly able to read, write, and understand their own language. Actually, I was close to 70 years of age, and I thought, how long can I support this? And at the end, what's coming out of it? Nothing is coming out of it, right? Then I thought I have to find another way. So I asked the families, hey, you farmer, where you come from? Why are you here? They said, oh, yeah, we lost our land, there was land grabbing. The government takes a lot of land away if you only have a soft paper, if you have no hard paper. Mainly nobody on the countryside has a hard paper, so they don't own the land. Even they live over there for 50 years or longer, right? So I started with agriculture. So I was uploading 10, 15 families. There was up to 100 people. I loaded up on a truck. I was driving 70, 80 kilometers to the north, to the south, and start to build farms, small farms, with chicken, with fish, vegetables, and with pigs, right? And I thought, Hannes, you're a genius. This is the way, so they can make money, they have enough eggs, they can sell the eggs, they get everything. So everything started rosy. So that was the last money I had in Switzerland. I was transferring. I wanted to sell my house in Switzerland. But in Switzerland, when you're married and you have a house, 50% belongs to your wife. So Hillary said, you cannot sell the house. I said, hey, we have everything we need. In Switzerland, you cannot even be poor. It's impossible. I said, come, let's sell the house. But she very tough. She said, you have 2 children. You cannot. You have to, be more cautious about that. It's already, you give everything down there, so but enough is enough. Okay, fine. So I tried to call friends and stuff like this. And, well, what happened? First, the fish started to die. They were like swimming upside down. They had all like big white spots, right? And then my chickens, they would lay eggs. 1 egg a week, if I was lucky, And my pigs, they were schlepping the legs behind, So I bought them with 40 kilo, the little baby pigs. But then with 50, 55, they already start to die, right? They had organ failures, minor one. And then my vegetables wouldn't grow. I didn't know what happened. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. So everything failed. And always when I was sending money to the Canadian bank, $10,000, $15,000, because you can't travel with so much money at that time. And even today, you have to be careful, right? I never got everything. I came with my Swift, UBS Swift, and say, here, I want to claim 12,000. He said, oh, sorry, sir, we only have 8. I said, no, 12 here, look. UBS says, oh, there must be a mistake. Do you want the 8,000 or you don't want the 8,000? All the banks belong to Hun Sen. Hun Sen is a Red Khmer. We are one of the most corrupt countries in the world, right? And when idiots like me, foreigners, sending money there, you can guarantee you're not getting all the money you're sending to the bank, right? It's a real huge problem. So all went down the drain. And then Dr. Jim, the Children's Surgical Center, he fixed way, the face. They reconstructed her. They helped a lot. I put her in the school. He said, I have to become local. I said, what do you mean local? He said, you have to start a local NGO because local NGOs, they don't have money, so they don't take money from me, only from the internationals. They milk them like cows. So I found a young lawyer. In 2014, I started Smiling Gecko Cambodia. And then I started to realize that we can own land. So I borrowed some money to buy 9 hectares of land. And we started again with the same thing. And we failed again with the same thing. The chickens still no eggs, the fish were dying, the pigs were dying, and we didn't have vegetables. And on top of it, we didn't have water because I went to see the land at the end of the rainy season and everything was green and wet. But then when we start work there, the dry season came. And it looked more like the north of Africa. Everything was brown, no water. So there was one disaster on the other. So I was so devastated that I wrote some emails to the Swiss Agriculture Institute and said, help, here is an artist. I tried agriculture, I failed, right? So then one guy called me, looked at my stuff and said, hey, I've checked you, you're a brilliant artist, but I think for an agriculture engineer, you have to go back to school. You need a little bit of different know-how. I said, yeah, well, I know now. What can we do? So he was sending me 2 of the agriculture engineers. One was for the animals, for the chicken, and for all this, and the other one for vegetables. And we started to rebuild everything. We started to compost. We started to fertilize. Because the reason why I don't have any vegetables is because I have no nitrogen in the soil. So it's a very poor soil. And then the engineers, they were asking me, does the other farmer, do they have vegetables? I said, no, actually not. No, none of the Cambodians have vegetables because nothing grows. That's the funny thing. We have rice. And that's it, right? So then I started. And today we came very far. This project is a model project. It's recognized all over the world. And it's 150 hectares of land. We have over 30,000 people live from what we do. We have a school. We're going up to 1,000 students in our school. We have one of the best hotels where we created. And it's really a very special project.
The Smiling Gecko Campus, the blueprint for a functioning community in rural Cambodia, has been created on 150 hectares of land around 80 kilometers north of Phnom Penh. The children go to a Western-style bilingual school and the adults receive sound vocational training. Produce from the fields and the farms feed the community and can be marketed well domestically. There are various handicraft businesses and the Farmhouse Resort and Spa, which is one of the most beautiful hotels in the country. The Smiling Gecko Campus, 150 hectares of future for rural Cambodia.
Well, that was the situation till COVID was hitting us. And it was brutal for us. And we still, not the virus is a problem, but economically, you can imagine 2.5 years, all the schools were closed. All the universities closed. No child went to school for 2.5 years. Hotels empty, no tourists. The Chinese, they closed the factories. So 1.9 million women were out of a job, and that was one of their main sources. So the GDP of Cambodia is actually garment and is tourism. So this was from one week to the other of, I will never forget the 22nd of February when the police came and the army came and they closed us down. And from then on, nothing went. So we could only leave, but we could not come back. So for us, everything changed. We started to discover that the people have not enough food. So there was a lot of problem to get food. They have no money because they're anyway very poor. And then we started to see that adults start to die. First ones that died were between 20 and 25 and 26. We didn't know why. And then we had orphans. Then the grandparents died. That was the second part. After 3 months, the grandparents died. And we had no idea why, till we finally find out that 80% of the Cambodians highly diabetes. And the diabetes comes from rice. Rice is sugar and starch. And when your diet is 90% starch and sugar, you've been mainly diabetes. It starts with children who've been fed on rice water with sugar. So we have a high amount of child diabetes in Cambodia, right? And so what had we do? So we changed our Smiling Gecko was orientated on economical kind of driven. We have different corporations, we have farms, we produce chicken, we produce fish, we have a hotel, we have carpentries. So we start to produce these kind of goods and try to sell it, generate our own money, so that we not only have to go and beg for money and not try to get money from the big institution, because that's difficult. So that was the situation we had. Every day, we had to go out, we had to start feed people around us. It was absolutely devastating what we had to go through. I mean, it was also dangerous for us because we had to protect ourselves. Then we went there, we gave them masks. Well, they live together on 5 square meters in a hut. They don't have running water, they don't have toilets, they have nothing. They don't even have a real place to cook. They have a clay pot. Everybody eats out of the same pot. How do you want to protect them? And how do you want to explain to people who are uneducated? 80% of the Cambodian cannot read and write their own language. The Red Khmer have wiped it out, and the government have never back implemented into their school system, right? What do you expect from them? The president signs documents with the thumb. All our documents we have to sign with the thumb. A signature is not accepted in Cambodia. Can you imagine that? And people cannot read their own name. Our employees we have come from a rice field, we have to give them numbers. Number 210, number 211. It's crazy what's happened. And I always say, why? Why does it come? It all is based on education. All is based on education. I mean, take Singapore. Once it was a similar country like Cambodia. It became one of the highest education countries because Lee Kuan Yew, brilliant man, I met him several times. He said, for Singapore it's clear. He wanted every Singaporean can count, can read, and can understand what it reads. Every Singaporean has to be enrolled in a health system, and Singapore needs a pension fund. That makes Singapore to them what it is today. But also Switzerland is like this, Spain is like this, Portugal is like this, Europe is like this. But this is missing in the developing world. And when you look at the schools here, this is how schools are.
G, O, G, L, E, Gulu Gulu.
90% of all the schools in Cambodia are like this. They go to school maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because the people don't even have the money to buy the school uniform. So there is no children at school. But if they enrolled once, the government counts them as being educated. Cambodia have the highest level of educated children in the world. That's how they do. And then you have these institutions, wonderful, UN. UNICEF. And then you ask yourself, they pump in billions and billions and billions of money into this country. And why do we have still 60% in this world who live in deep, poor areas, who cannot read, have not even clean water, have not enough food? What do these guys do with the money? And then they even have the balls, to post this kind of posts on Facebook. That 2 out of 3 10-year-old children are not able to read or to understand a simple text. So you ask yourself, why don't we invest in the human capital? Here, all of you, if you have children, you're investing 20 years in your child, 25 years in your child. Well, it comes so far that families here in Singapore not even have children anymore because they say, I cannot afford to have a child, to pay for the education of a child. This happens in China. So demographically, we run into a huge problem. We will have less and less people who will be able to be economically on a good level so that they can generate the money so that we have a good life. So for this, we need the developing world. Philip Hildebrand, Vice President of BlackRock, he just visited us. He said BlackRock has discovered that they have to invest $400 billion the next year, till 2040, into the developing world for education. Because we need them more in the future than they need us. In Cambodia, a family with 6 kids has an annual income of $1,200 to $1,400. What do they want to buy? It's not enough that 5% of that population makes millions. They are not a market. And we have to bring these countries to market so that they can buy of what we develop, of what we initially can produce. And we also have to stop to use them as slavery in the textile factories. It's a real problem we have. And this we have to solve. So I started my own school, and I think we have achieved here something becomes a model, also for the Cambodian government, and also for UN and UNICEF.
Life in rural Cambodia is characterized by terrible poverty, of malnutrition, prostitution, violence. A school education as we know it does not exist. And even if children go to school, it's so bad that there is no escape from the dark cycle of misery.
It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands.
We take these children into our care in a Western-style kindergarten and school that we run on our campus northeast of Phnom Penh. With us, the children receive bilingual instruction from trained teachers in Khmer and English from preschool. They finally get enough to eat, can take a shower every day, and even if a child is ill, we stand by them and their family. We are here for the wonderful children of Cambodia. So well cared for, they finally have a future. The change, it is all in our hands.
It's incredible. We have now 6th graders. They go 7th grade in August. We're building the middle school at the moment. And it's incredible how these children have developed. Girls. Our girls get sold between the age of 13 to 15 into forced marriage. The family who makes $1 a day sells their daughters for $3,500. And who is buying these girls? These are the guys who are 55 and 60 years old. they have to work for them, and then after 2 years, when they get 16, 17, they get pregnant. So they have one child, they have another child, and then the guy, if he has enough money, he buys another one, because there is no liability between the man and the girl or the women he marries. Maybe he has to pay $100 if the girl goes to the police, but 99% all the women you see, they have children, up to 6 children from 2, 3 different men. Well, the law is 18 for marriage, but when the parents are agree, you can marry them off even with 10 years. That's the fact in Cambodia. We try to fight, and our girls, they are stand up today and say, no, we had 2 girls, 6th graders, where they came to the school running, crying, and said, grandmother just came and I have to be married off to Batampang. You have to help. So then we had the whole village came to us. They were very angry because we interfere in their whole culture. And we were talking to them and try, that they understand. And I said to them, look, I know $3,500 is a lot of money. I do understand. And also I do understand that you need this to live. But if you wait another 3 years, when they come out of ninth grade, they worth $30,000, $40,000. I said, why? Why are they worth so much? I said, well, they have a job. They get a top job. They make $700, $800, $900 a month. They can feed the whole family. And then they said, is that guaranteed? I said, of course it is guaranteed. They came back 2 days later and said that the 2 girls, they can stay in our school and can finish their grades. But that's what we have to fight for. And you have to understand, in Cambodia, the grandparents can't read and write, never seen a book. The parents can't read and write, never seen a book. So they have no relation to education. And I always try to explain to people, how can I show you how our children in our school make so much progress? We have something what no other school in Cambodia have. We have painting, we have singing, for every child has an instrument. We learn music in our school, right? We are having the local culture with theaters and everything. And I just want to show you a small video, because I'm producing music videos. In 2018, we were in the morning. Kids come at school at 6 in the morning. And we were all there, and the girl was late on a bicycle, and she got struck by a lightning in front of all of us. There was nothing left. And this was so shocking for all of us. And in last December, the 6th graders came and said, Hannes, it's tradition in Cambodia. We all think of the people who die. Can we do something? And they said, what do you want to do? Want to do a painting, or what do you want to do? They said, no, they like to sing a song. So I found this song from an American producer in LA. He had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend got shot in the area of the black people. So they killed him there. And then he produced this song, I See You Again. That means I see you in your next life. Can you make it a bit louder? So I just want to show you, these children are the poorest of the poorest, right? English is still not their main language, and they're able to sing. You will see, you will be surprised.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew all the plane we flew, good things we've been through, that I'd be standing right here talking to you about another past. I know we love to hit the road and laugh,
but somebody told me not even last. How to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, have forever passed. Now I see you in a better place.
see you in a better place.
How can we not talk about family when family are where we go? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began.
Oh, I tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Oh, oh, oh. Fish a boat, go wash away, and the vibe is feeling sure. What's more than true friendship and fun and true bond, and the bond will never be broken, the love will never get lost. And then brothers would come, but stop not lying, never be crossed. Establishing you and that old and that line have to be drawn. That line is blurred, so remember me when I'm gone.
When I'm gone.
How can we not talk about family when family are that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side. And now you got me before the last
So
night.
let the light guide the way. Yeah, hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began.
Oh, I tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Oh, oh,
When you see what these children are able to do, it's the best investment. We have to invest in the human capital. We have to invest not only in our children, it's an inequality. I feel bad about it. You know that in Switzerland, our kids, and here they have access to all this education, to very good jobs later on, everything. And you have 60% of the world who doesn't have it. You have to remember, 2030 is 50% of the middle European are older than 65 years. That means there's half left. And of the half left, the half them they go study and go to school. So there is actually 25% left of the working capital of human beings in Middle Europe. So, and we don't have resources. Resources getting more difficult to get. So who is working, who is producing all this that we have this living standards? We need these people, these children, that are our future. But we have to invest the next 20 years in them. That's a fact, right? And I think that we have to start slowly thinking about it. Me too, running an NGO, where can I generate money? Right? We can generate money with our pigs, with our fish, but we have in the agriculture big problem. We lost 370 mother sows through the African swine fever. So we lost everything on that side. So agriculture, very difficult in a country where you don't have infrastructure. And today, with the change of the climate, it's a big problem. We have to study today what vegetables can still grow in 35. We know we do not have fish anymore in the Mekong, in the Tonle Sap, not because overfishing. No, because the temperature rising up to 3 to 5 degrees, the fish are dying. We had last summer in Europe, we had that problem. In Switzerland, the fish were dying in our rivers, because the water temperature went up 2 degrees. So we have to think about it. So for me, it's a beautiful country. I had luck. I found people of the Swiss hotel industry that were helping me to extend the farmhouse. We are one of the most beautiful hotels in Cambodia. We have one of the best restaurants in Cambodia, maybe so even one of Asia. And this is how we try to generate money. We only have 34 rooms. But we need guests. And at the moment, Cambodia is at the end of it. Thailand is already moving forward. Vietnam is forward. I mean, in Singapore, it's sometimes really hard to get a hotel room, right? Also in Bangkok. And we get the overflow from the tourism here, from Europe, takes a long time. So now we are on the go here in Asia to find tourists who come to us on the weekend. And I tell you, if you ever want to have the most beautiful weekends or holidays, come to the Smiling Gecko farm. We build everything ourselves. All the houses are built by our carpentry. We have all our own teams we build. We have beautiful suites. We just finished 10 more rooms. And we also have beautiful Khmer bungalow. On this 120 hectares where we are on this side, right? We planted all the trees. There was not one single tree when we started it. We replanted everything. We're protecting nature, biodiversity, water, recycle economy, no waste policy. We try to be a model also in tourism, very important. We have one of the most beautiful spa. It's 8,000 square meters. It lays in a jungle where we grow endangered plants, special coconut trees, nut trees, leaf trees who disappear to the deforestation. So it's really a small oasis of something very, very beautiful. We have one of the most talented chefs. She's Maria. She grew up in the slums. She never went to school. Today, probably end of this year, she will belong to Asia 50 Best Restaurant, and the first Michelin star is on the go. She cooks with Frank Giovannini, Massimo Bottura, Andres Caminada. She is supported by all the Michelin stars in the world, and she is a super talent. And it shows, even if you not have gone to school or not much, there is talent. Look at me. I mean, I'm probably the dumbest other doctor of the University of Zurich, with my 6 years primary and 2 years secondary. There is other ways we can learn. There's other ways we can progress. Today, we don't see the talents of our children anymore because they have to get the grades in school. They have the best in maths, in science, and we don't see that they may be brilliant musicians or handcraft, carpenters, cooks, even hairdresser. Because I tell you, everything goes into robotechnic, but you can wait 50 years till a woman has her hair cut to a robot. So, and actually in 20 years, women hairdresser will make more money than anybody else, than all the one we studies. We've been awarded by Traveler, Condé Nast Traveler, and just now, a couple of days ago, we've been taken in, and that is a huge step. We are the 10th best hotel and spa in Cambodia. And I mean, if you see who is on that list, so Shinto Mani Wild, you pay $2,500 a night and you have to book 3 nights. And they lifted us up because we're very, very special. I've come slowly to my end, but I will you bring Wei. Wei, when I brought her back to Cambodia, first she was reconstructed. For me, she looks still beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. And, sometimes we go together and we sing karaoke, and I don't even see anymore what has happened to her face. And then I paid for her education, primary, secondary, and it was crazy. She went like a Concorde. She was like flying to her education, high school, and then she went to the university. And today she is a licensed lawyer in Cambodia. That's Wei. Again, somebody who's never been before to school can make such a career. And then I brought her to UN because I'm holding a lot of talks. I'm a member of the International Food Program. So I took her to Geneva, and then she was very scared to talk. She never did that before, so we did a little movie about her for the entry, so people knew already what's coming. And I had to promise her something, because when she was already half a year back, I brought her home to her family. And it was really a crazy experience. The father didn't know where to look anywhere, and here and there. And she took him in her arms, and he said, I'm sure it was an accident. I'm sure you didn't want it to burn me like this. And he didn't know what to say. And then I said to her after, why didn't you tell me? She said, I don't want that my father loses his face. It will not change my situation. This is something very typical Cambodian who've been through this horrible time of the Red Khmer. Why they all Hindustans? They're very nice people. And then she said, Hannes, can I say that? Instead that I say, my father did it, I can say it was an accident. Yeah, and then he sold me to a woman, and she sold me into the child prostitution. This girl has lived 10 years in Thailand, 10 years sexually abused, 10 years put in jail, 10 years not to school, 10 years beaten up. A horrible life. And today, she has made it into another life.
Hello, my name is Katrin Val. I'm 18 years old. I come from Cambodia. I was born in Battambang province. When I was a small child, an accident happened and my face and my body was badly burned. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was very painful for me. I remember after a while, my parents gave me away to an old woman who wanted me to sell a flower. The old woman brought me to Thailand and sold me to a begging syndication when I was 3 years old. From that on, I was begging on the street, the market, and on the bridge. My day was very long. I had to start early in the morning till it was late at night. When I was 4 years old, I was baking in Pattaya. I was lucky when foreigners saw me, I made more money. At the end of the day, I had to give my money to the baking syndication. The burn in my face, it was very bad. I was blind on one eye. To the burn of my mouth, my lips were sealed and I had difficulty to eat. In all the 4 years I was baking in Thailand, I had no medical help or education support. In 2004, the police was arresting me and put me in jail as I had no legal paper and I'm not from Thailand. I was Cambodian and I had no passport. Nowadays, I am very happy with my life. I can go to study like everyone. I can study English, computer, dancing. Also, myself, I can sing very well. I like singing and dancing. I have many of friends. They really like me. Also, I love them too. We are so close. What I'm thinking is I have a good life, good friend, like everyone. I want to study politics and environment. That's why I want to change our countries.
Well, a lot of people always ask me, why do you do all this? I said, look at this, look what we can achieve with this next generation, right? And okay, I'm an old guy, I'm 77 years of age, and so it's my last part of my life, and sometimes it's not quite easy, but I'm actually one of the most privileged human beings on this earth that I'm allowed and able to do this, to help, to support, and to build a chance for a new generation. And we have a lot of companies, they also have on their program their corporate social responsibilities, and I think it's important that this money goes into this kind of institutions. It's very difficult for us to get money from the UN or also from the Swiss or the German government, because we are a non-government organization and they only give money from government to government, and that's where the money actually then disappears. It's billions and billions a year. Where it just never reaches the people where they should, right? And we are fighting for this, and we get a lot of recognition now from the Cambodian government. They don't give us money, but now they want to take parts of our school to integrate in their school. that they can able to feed. There is an international food program of UN where actually there's enough money to feed children, but they have to implement it, and they have to build the infrastructure, that there is a kitchen there, that we can feed them. And all these kind of things, that's my job now, to go around and try to find more understanding that the world out there is not necessarily how we think the world is, and that we all very, very privileged, have to be very thankful that we can live our life. So maybe a lot of small problems don't become problems anymore when you see this. And for this, I like to thank you very much that I was able to come here. I also want, Pedro, thank you, because I know you support us for my talk here, and it's very helpful for us. We can need really every penny to go on and do what we do. So thank you very much. And now I'm sure you're hungry, so you get a nice lunch.